Welcome, my dear lovers of royal scandals. Today, we're diving into a story that shook the British Empire to its core. A tale of how a single phone call from an American divorcee forced a king to abdicate his throne. December 1936. Edward VIII has been ruling for just 325 days when, bam, he abdicates. The official story? I cannot bear the burden without the support of the woman I love. How romantic. But what if I tell you that behind this beautiful story lies a political conspiracy, Nazi connections, and the dirtiest blackmail in the history of the British monarchy? Get comfortable, grab some popcorn, because today we're unpacking not just a romantic drama, but a web of espionage, family secrets, and political intrigue that nearly brought down the British monarchy. And trust me, what I'm about to reveal will outshine any Hollywood blockbuster. Let's start from the beginning. Who was this mysterious Wallis Simpson, the woman who managed to captivate the future emperor of the British Empire? Bessie Wallace Warfield was born in 1896 in Baltimore, in a family that, to put it mildly, was far from aristocratic. Her father died early, and her mother barely made ends meet. A classic American rags-to-riches story, but with some spicy twists. Her first marriage was to Winfield Spencer, a naval officer and alcoholic. But that's not the interesting part. What happened next is where things get juicy. In 1924, Wallis joined her husband in China, where he was stationed. And that's when the real intrigue begins. In Peking, she spent several months studying, let's call them Eastern practices in local brothels. Yes, you heard that right. British intelligence later compiled an entire report detailing the specific skills Mrs. Spencer acquired in Chinese houses of pleasure. These skills were allegedly the secret to her power over men. Divorce from her first husband followed, then a second marriage to Ernest Simpson, an American who had become a naturalized Briton. And here's where it gets interesting. Ernest worked in the shipping business and had close ties to Germany. Coincidence? Hardly. By the time she met the Prince of Wales in 1931, Wallis was already a seasoned social intriguer. She spoke multiple languages, knew how to charm powerful men, and, most importantly, possessed information that could be extremely valuable to certain circles. 1931. A party at Lady Furnace's. The Prince of Wales, Edward, meets Wallis Simpson. She tells him, "Your Highness must miss central heating at Fort Belvedere." Bold? Absolutely, but it worked. What followed can be summed up in one word: obsession. Edward, previously known as a playboy and womanizer, suddenly turns into a devoted puppy. He showers Wallis with jewels, an emerald tiara from Cartier worth £100,000, a fortune back then, flamingo brooches, necklaces. Between 1934 and 1935 alone, he spent enough on gifts for Wallis to match the annual budget of a small town. But money was just the beginning. Edward starts bringing Wallis to official events, introducing her to diplomats, taking her on Mediterranean cruises. Scandal. The press stays quiet. Britain had a gentleman's agreement to protect the royal family's private life, but rumors spread like wildfire. Now, the juicy part, the letters. Edward wrote to Wallis every day, sometimes multiple times. The surviving letters read like the confessions of an addict. "My beloved, beloved, I cannot live without you. You are my life, my everything." But there are letters that never became public. What was in them? State secrets? Blackmail material?
confessions of treason? While Edward loses his head over love, the royal family is horrified. King George V, Edward's father, utters prophetic words before his death. "After I'm gone, that boy will ruin himself within a year." He couldn't have been more right. Queen Mary, the Queen Mother, tries to bring her son to his senses. She holds family meetings, involves the Archbishop of Canterbury, and even attempts to bribe Wallis to leave the prince's life with an offer of £1 million. In those days, that was a fortune, enough to live comfortably forever. But Wallis refuses. And what about Wallis's husband, Ernest Simpson? Oh, that's a story in itself. Ernest doesn't just quietly tolerate his wife's affair, he actively encourages it. He arranges meetings, leaves Wallis alone with the prince, and even moves to a separate apartment to stay out of the way. For his compliance, he conveniently lands lucrative government contracts. Coincidence? I think not. Prince Albert, Edward's younger brother, the future George VI, is on the verge of a nervous breakdown. He stammers, dreads public speaking, and now faces the prospect of becoming king. Albert's wife, Elizabeth, the future Queen Mother, openly calls Wallis that woman and vows never to accept her.
Now we get to the juiciest part, the political undercurrents. It's 1936, and Edward becomes king. Europe is on the brink of war, the Nazis have risen to power in Germany, and the British king suddenly starts voicing highly controversial political views. Edward VIII openly sympathizes with the fascist regime. He believes Germany could be an ally against the communist threat. In private conversations, he makes anti-Semitic remarks, talking about a Jewish conspiracy in the British government. But the real bombshell is Wallis's role. German archives, uncovered after the war, reveal shocking details. Joachim von Ribbentrop, later Germany's foreign minister, was the ambassador in London in 1936, and he regularly met with Wallis Simpson. Officially, these were social events. Unofficially, information exchange. Ribbentrop didn't just court Wallis, he sent her roses every day. 17 roses, one for each time they allegedly slept together. The audacious German even bragged about his conquests to colleagues. But the worst part, Wallis was passing Ribbentrop the contents of classified government documents that the king had access to. Military rearmament plans, diplomatic ciphers, even details of cabinet meetings. Pure treason. The Nazis even devised a plan called Operation Willi to restore Edward to the throne as a puppet king under German control after conquering Britain. A pipe dream? Not at all. The Nazis had every reason to count on his cooperation. By the autumn of 1936, British intelligence had gathered enough dirt to have Wallis shot as a spy and the king locked in the Tower for treason. But a public scandal could destroy the monarchy as an institution. Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin makes a decision. The king must go. But how do you force a monarch to abdicate without revealing the real reasons? A brilliant move. Use church morality. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Cosmo Lang, declares that the church cannot bless a marriage between the king and a twice-divorced woman. Constitutional crisis. The king cannot rule without the church's support. But that's just a cover. The real conversation happens in Baldwin's office on a cold December evening. The Prime Minister places a thick file before the king. Photos of Wallis with Ribbentrop, recorded phone calls, copies of leaked documents, and financial transfers from Germany. "Your Majesty," Baldwin says, "you have a choice. Abdicate and live as a private citizen, or tomorrow morning the press gets these documents and Parliament begins impeachment proceedings." Edward knows the game is up, but he negotiates. His condition for abdication: Wallis gets the title of Duchess and immunity. Baldwin agrees. The priority is to remove the traitor king from the throne. On December 11, 1936, Edward VIII abdicates. In a radio address to the nation, he delivers a prepared speech about not being able to rule without the support of the woman I love. All of Britain weeps, moved by the romantic tale. The truth, however, remains buried in classified archives. After the abdication, the Duke of Windsor, Edward's new title, marries Wallis in France. The wedding is modest. No royal family members, just a few friends. Wallis receives the title of Duchess, but is denied Royal Highness, a final jab from her husband's family. Officially, the couple lives in voluntary exile. Unofficially, they're under round-the-clock surveillance by the intelligence services of 3 countries: Britain, France, and the USA. In 1937, they embark on a scandalous tour of Germany. The Duke and Duchess meet Hitler, Goering, and Goebbels. Photos spread worldwide. Edward cheerfully shaking the Führer's hand, Wallis charmingly chatting with Nazi elites. But it's not just a social visit. Documents from German archives reveal serious talks about future cooperation. The Nazis still saw Edward as a potential ally. The outbreak of war finds the couple in France. They're urgently evacuated to Spain, then Portugal. The Germans attempt to kidnap the Duke. Operation Willi is still in play. British intelligence barely manages to whisk the couple to safety. Where to? The Bahamas. Edward is appointed governor of this tropical paradise. An honorable position or an honorable prison? More likely the latter. On the islands, the Duke is surrounded by British intelligence agents posing as secretaries and aides. Even in the Bahamas, the Duke and Duchess remain under suspicion. The FBI maintains round-the-clock surveillance, intercepting their mail, wiretapping their phones, and tracking their every move. And not without reason. FBI archives reveal that Wallis continued to maintain contact with German agents during the war, through neutral countries, diplomats, and intermediaries. In 1943, a mysterious incident occurs. Coded messages written in invisible ink are found among the Duchess's personal belongings. Their contents remain classified, but it's known that the documents were immediately sent to Washington. Another intriguing detail: the couple's finances. Officially, they live off a stipend from the British Crown, yet bank records show regular transfers from Switzerland, Argentina, and even post-war Germany. Where did the money come from? What was it for? After the war, many Nazi war criminals faced trial. Ribbentrop was executed at Nuremberg, but the Duke and Duchess of Windsor remained untouchable. More than that, they were granted a comfortable life in Paris, funded by the British government. 1950s, Paris. The Duke and Duchess live in a lavish mansion in the Bois de Boulogne, leading a glamorous social life and hosting guests. On the surface, it's idyllic, but British intelligence keeps watching. Why? What did they know that required constant surveillance? In the 1970s, the Duke falls seriously ill. Before his death, he tries several times to write his memoirs. Each time, the manuscripts mysteriously vanish. Publishers receive calls from London requesting they not publish the book. 1972, the Duke dies. Wallis is left alone, slowly descending into dementia. Yet even now, she's monitored. Agents record her rambling monologues, hoping she might let slip something significant in her confusion. 1986, Wallis dies. It seems all secrets are buried with her. But no. After the funeral, British agents arrive at the Paris mansion and meticulously seize all documents, letters, and diaries. Officially, they're for the Royal Archives. Unofficially, for destruction.
So, my dear conspiracy enthusiasts, what's the final tally? A king who, in just a few months of rule, nearly sold his country to the enemy. An adventuress who might have been a spy for multiple intelligence agencies. A government that chose a romantic lie over a compromising truth. And intelligence services still hiding documents nearly a century old. Questions we'll likely never get answers to. Was Wallis a Nazi agent, or was she just used as a pawn? What state secrets did Edward pass to the Germans? Why are the abdication documents still classified? What was in those files Baldwin showed the king? Who funded the couple's lavish life in exile? A beautiful love story stronger than the crown? Yeah, right. More likely, we're dealing with one of the most successful cover-up operations in history. Edward VIII wasn't removed for loving a divorcee. He was removed for treason. The romantic legend was crafted to protect the monarchy's reputation. And the scariest part? This operation worked so well that nearly 90 years later, most people still believe the fairy tale about a king who chose love. The truth remains buried in classified archives, locked away for a long, long time. Subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and remember, the history of royal families is always more than it seems on the surface. See you in the next expose, where we'll keep digging up skeletons in gilded closets.